The foundation of human understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the foundation of human understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Hello, welcome once again to the program, How to Control Your Emotions. And at the end of the broadcast, I'm going to show you how you can obtain a book and some cassettes to teach you that very title. You must control your emotions, otherwise your emotions will control you and you'll be out of control like a driverless car. And I think if you look around in the world today, you'll see a lot of driverless cars, all banging into each other. The world would be a beautiful place if we all had love for one another, which means if we didn't react to one another. But many of us believe that loving is reacting. And tonight perhaps, and future evenings, I will show you that you must become unemotionally involved. You know, we must not dare to think any longer that love is an emotion or compassion is a feeling. Somewhere beyond being involved in your thoughts and feelings, there's a state of knowing all this as I say it to you now. And how far have you come? What has happened to your life because of all your involvements? After you've been involved in this person, this man, you're involved in this woman, you're involved in your job, you're involved in your work, you're involved in your arts and sciences and your music and your culture. I say you must be unemotionally involved. And what happens when you're emotionally involved is that you lose control. A lot of us are afraid to become involved because we know that we've lost control. And we have groups, therapy groups, that try to help us overcome that fear. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? See? So they teach you to overcome that fear to your detriment. You're naturally afraid to become emotionally involved because you give power to other people to control your mind and your whole future and your identity. Okay, we have questions, all right? I was going to talk. I thought we had a dull crowd here this evening, but it looks like they're beginning to stir here. All right, the natives are stirring. Okay, all right. Maybe we want to talk on this subject?
Yes, I can see that people, that's the reason that they drink and take drugs, so that they can be emotionally involved.
Exactly, to enhance the emotional involvement. Does anybody know what other benefit in the enhancement of the emotions to involve? What other benefit that a person gets from that?
To lose yourself.
Delusions? To lose yourself.
You lose your pain.
Lose your pain. What is the nature
and
of
you're uncomfortableness.
What is the nature? You're discomfortable.
Yes, you're uncomfortable, and you know that you feel like you're not. You feel like you're in a goldfish bowl, and you can't touch anything. There's this glass between you and people, so you try to
break down the barrier between you and people.
Break down the barrier so you could be like
so you can reach
else.
across
Right.
and touch someone.
Yes.
And someone can. What is happening when you touch someone? Does anybody know when you reach out to someone? What are you getting? You must be getting something. And should you be getting
support.
it? Should you be getting support? What support?
You're getting support for the way you are, or the way that they are, and you feel like you want to be like them, so you get support from them.
Well,
reach
a
out
little
and-
diffused, little diffused. Anybody else has a better definition of this? In other words, when you reach out and become emotionally involved, let me just frame it again. When we reach out and become emotionally involved with someone, what precisely is happening? Now, pardon?
Exchanging identities.
Exchanging identities is correct, but then the audience, that's too far ahead. That's too far ahead for everybody. But we'll get to it.
Justification.
Justification?
When
But when you say justification, go ahead.
when I was younger and I had girlfriends, there was a certain type of girl I would always be attracted to, and that's the type that I had to go up and put my arms around. But if they came up and put their arms around me, I didn't want that. I would reject that kind of girl.
Why was that?
Because I wanted to pull something out of them.
You want to initiate that. You see, we are talking about corruption now. In other words, if someone does that to you first, it makes you the ripple in the pond and not the pebble that causes the ripple. You are the effect of someone's cause. So it's like someone saying, oh, you're a wonderful person, and giving you compliments before you've earned it. See? So therefore, that takes control away from you, because when you come down to accept that love or that acceptance, it reinforces a pride. But pride will become dependent, because to come down to accept affection or love, this mysterious something for which we're involved, is also coming away from reality, as I've said before, to be our own reality. We become, in a sense, a miniature God in our own realm, and now dependent, guilty as hell.
Yeah.
So that's called, we're being seduced when someone does it to us first. When a girl goes, hello, honey, hello, big boy, right?
Right.
And you respond to that, and you're being seduced if you come out of your tree. You cross the border from East Germany into West Germany into East Germany. You come under a different authority. Because of course, if you invade East Germany yourself, you have more control, right?
Right.
So he said, that men very often will violate their little children. They violate innocent women. And they like that because they like corrupting something. Their ego has become dependent upon corrupting something first, and then for being the master of what it's corrupted.
It's
See?
kind of like torturing frogs when you're
Yes,
a kid
but
or something.
but you have to go on corrupting to draw something from
Right.
the violated person, and the violated person has a problem also from that point onwards with being a victim with that type of human being.
Right.
But we are getting away. It's heavy stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, you did it to me.
I see this as a problem.
It is a problem. Because we like to corrupt one another, because we draw from the emotion. We dig into them. It's like killing something and taking something of its essence. After all, if you have a lamb, you can't eat it living. Even the lion has to kill it, and then it devours it. So what we do is when we violate something, traumatize somebody, we're able to kill it in a manner of speaking, a spiritual thing, and then devour them spiritually. We
right.
take their essence into ourselves.
Yeah.
And we become more, if we get away with that sort of thing, we become more and more ruthless, and people become more and more afraid.
Right.
See? And they will they'll be frightened easily and give way and allow themselves to be bullied. Because it will seem to them, when they give in to you and give up their substance, that they're being rewarded for some kind of sacrifice and compassion and goodness. Is that right?
Yes.
But there's
See?
always someone that's above you
Liberals
taking
will-
that energy that you've gotten from them.
You got it? You got it. And there's always someone standing over you who who've done it to you.
That's
It's
right.
called a dog-eat-dog society. Of course, we are getting away from emotional involvement, although that is the subject, and we've discussed this before. And I don't mind going over it again, because we always have new audience, and it's always worth revisiting. Agreed?
Yeah.
Because this kind of thing cannot be stated enough times.
Yeah.
Now, but let's go back to the subject again. What benefit do you get by being emotionally involved with someone? Whether you cause the response or you You know, you are the respondent. You know what I mean? That lady right over there.
I caused very bad thing for that time. It was a long, long time. It was 40 years ago, during the war. And she was in Europe. She was a girl, and I was already married and have a 2-month-old baby. And the Russian came in, and he pulled out a hand grenade.
Hand grenade?
Wanted to kill us when he does not get a girl.
I didn't follow that, I'm sorry.
He want to have a girl. And my girlfriend, and I must have been so selfish that I had my baby, and I said, why don't you go with him? And since then, I am bullied, and I wanted to make right, and I just couldn't.
In other words, you suggested for your own safety,
Yes.
for your girlfriend to submit to this man, this Russian.
This what I wanted to know. Did I do it for my baby, or did I do it for myself?
Well, that's a very difficult question.
Yes,
It's been troubling you.
since then.
And how has this affected you throughout your life? Have you
I was always sick.
have you always sick, but
Sick.
have you always allowed yourself to be bullied?
Yes, from everybody.
In other words,
This I kept inside. I never could get it out from my mind. And now
so the
since
Russian came in, and he wanted
a girl.
a girl, and in other words, you didn't want that girl to be you.
Yes.
In other words, so you
But
sacrificed.
he first he put his finger on her. Then he came to me, and I have my baby. I was still bleeding, 2-month-old baby. I didn't have any doctor, and that something went wrong.
Yes, that's a very difficult.
And
It's a very difficult.
Then I sent that girl. Kathy, why don't you go with him? That's what I said.
Well, you were acting very instinctively, weren't you?
Yes.
And very protectively to your baby. Am I right?
This
No,
I don't.
I'm just intuiting now. I don't believe that you acted selfishly. I think you acted as a mother would, protecting her baby, thinking of nothing more than this baby,
Yeah.
the innocence. In other words, it's a choice between the woman is more able to take care of herself
Yeah.
than the child, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
A 2-month-old baby. Now, I'll tell you what's wrong. Let me tell you what's wrong. I think if I had been in your position, and I had known what I know today,
Yes.
things might have been different. But let us say I don't know quite as much to be wise enough to know how to handle that situation, so it would come out that neither one of you were hurt. It is quite possible to have handled that without either one of you got hurt, because you both reacted with fear. And in your infantile, your youthful state, you know no other way of handling anything
Well,
except without fear and submission. We've
it
always
that way.
reacted to fear and submission to authorities.
Yeah.
See? And you try to get the monkey off your back by putting it on her. I can understand that. It's the nature of the fallen creature.
Why since I started to meditate,
Let me tell you
then
something.
I stopped to my soul get lighter since I started to meditate.
And there's a reason for this. But my son, who is in the used car business, and he buys some wrecked cars and takes the parts from some and fixes them and makes nice cars out of them, and with low mileage on it and everything. Anyway, he was in the auction, and this great big powerful biker type person, and he kept on banging his car and putting more dents into it. He said, "Hey man," he said, "would you mind not putting dents in my car? I just bought it." He says, "You want to make something out of it?" And there's 2 or 3 of them. They're big. He says, "No, I just want you to not put dents in my car." Boom, another one, right? You want to make something. See, that's another situation. But Alan holds his cool, and he's always done this. And he said, "Look, man, that's all I wanted you to do. I don't want to make anything out. I just want you not to put dents in my car." Boom. And so I don't remember exactly what he said, but he said, look, man, my wife is coming, and you know, my girlfriend is coming. And he made up a little story. And he made up a story which was a total lie. But it brought out compassion, because he understood this condition that Alan was supposed to have created.
Yeah.
He said, oh man, we understand. Hey, go ahead and we'll have a beer, and you see, and let him go. There was a way of dealing with everything. There's a way of dealing to diffuse the situation. There's a way of dealing with the beast, with wisdom and calm. You could not have helped yourself. Most people in this room, if a Nazi or a Russian under those conditions would come in, you would naturally react and freeze and submit. You'd rebel, bang, submit. You know, the other choice is to submit. But there's another way. There are people who lived in concentration camps who were so dignified that the Nazis didn't kill them. They somehow, there's something about responding with fear that makes it, if you give in to your child, let's say you give in to your child, you give your child his own way, do you know what happens to that child? He becomes more violent. And he feels, by giving in to him, it's like praising him, it creates a conflict. It encourages the violence in him, it encourages the pride. And the pride feels as though that you will, because you've given into this child, because you give into the bully, it does two things to the bully. It makes him more of a bully, because the only sense of bravery he can have is to be more ruthless. That's
But-
number one, right?
Yeah, and she got the bully, not me, later on.
She got a bully for
For-
a husband or something, right?
No, for me. She always, on the whole, she never, I think, I'm sure, she never forget what I did to her. She always lets me know.
Oh, she's still
She's
around.
still around. I
Uh-huh.
let her bring after me to America. I tried everything.
You try to help her.
Yes.
You try to placate your conscience,
Yes.
and you do the
My
right thing. but-
conscience was just killing me.
Well, let's explore it, and I'm going to show you how. You said you already feel lighter since you meditated.
Yes.
And there's a
Yes.
reason for this. But I think just for the fun of it, and for the interest for the rest of the audience, we need to explore this idea of, giving in to a person, and giving in to your children, and making them bullies, and making yourself a coward. See, because you form part of the problem. When you give in to a person, you actually make the person more powerful in their wrong. And you give them the right to make demands on you they never would have otherwise have made.
Yes.
And on top of that, you create such a conflict in them that you have actually been part of the reason why they've become more animal rather than human. And their conscience, they have a conscience too. The Nazi and the Russian has a conscience too. And they have the same thing going on inside them, whether it's a Russian or whether it's an Iranian. It doesn't make it who it is. We all have the same mechanisms.
Yeah.
And then when they feel their pride growing, they begin to feel like they are really something, and they begin to hate you more. See? And they hate you for two reasons. Why? Because it makes you a bully, and it makes them more powerful and more important to themselves. It makes them more human and you an animal. See? But at the same time, it creates a conflict inside them, for which they blame you for. They feel like somehow you're responsible for the pain that they feel, and they want to kill you for it, because the only way they could stop you giving in to them and creating, and them swelling up with pride, see, and conceit, with this tremendous pain, they feel like the only way they can stop it is by killing you, hurting you. I've seen children who have loving mothers, liberal mothers, and mothers are very supportive, and the children become bullies. And what do the children do? They're more violent with their parents. And why are they violent with their parents? Because they want to stop them from loving. And what do the parents do? They get upset. They're angry because their children are not grateful. They don't understand what's going on inside. And then they feel guilty, and they feel they haven't loved enough. And that loving has actually become a new submission exactly like yours. You resent your tyrant, you feel guilty, and then you love it, hoping that the tyrant will love you back, and then he hates you back.
It goes.
Is that
back on
correct?
Yes.
That's the way you've been. This thing is transferred to your life,
One
hasn't
day we
it?
love each other, next day we hate each other. It goes back and forth.
Yes, you see, because you can't. You have ever since that day, when you didn't have the guidance
Yes.
and the discipline, which nobody has, but it causes suffering. If we survive it, we survivors don't really survive. We just exist, don't we?
Yes.
Whether it's a Russian doing it or somebody
Or
else,
anybody else.
doing
Yeah.
it. It's a typical situation. So if you would have not reacted at that time, things would have been completely different. You might have had something to say which have made stop that Russian right in his tracks, because after all, he's a human being. The trouble is, in that position where he was, and in that position where you are, instant fear, instant terror, instant submission, and immediately you start giving in to him, and he can't stop himself taking advantage. He couldn't stop himself. You sacrificed somebody else's life to preserve your own. Perfectly understandable under those conditions, and forgivable. See? As a matter of fact, truth of the matter is, if that young lady was noble, she should have volunteered to save your baby. If she had a mothering instinct in her.
She went.
She went, but it should have been
But
her.
I felt so
It should have been her
sorry.
own idea, even in that fallen state. It needed to be her own idea.
But it hurt me because she was a virgin, and
I
I
understand that.
had a husband.
I understand that. So you wouldn't have been any different, in a manner of speaking. You wouldn't have been spoiled, but you would have been spoiled. Of course you would.
Maybe.
Now, as to the question of release, you already been released.
God blessed me so much, and I don't know how. How did I get to America? I know that it was from God, a blessing
It
somehow.
was a blessing.
Because I was looking and I was sad inside and everything, and I went away from everybody who knew me before. And
You withdrew. You withdrew. In other
yes,
words, right.
and I looked and looked for everything so many years.
You looked for the answer.
Yeah.
You looked for the answer.
And one
Forgive
day,
me if I translate.
one
little.
day I heard 1 hour. On the 1 hour, you talk to men, women, and everybody on the radio, and it was me the whole hour. And I kneeled
What
down.
happened?
I kneeled down in the kitchen, and thank God that now I have found what I was looking for.
Can I just pause for a second? Look how beautiful it is for this lady. Don't you share some of her joy? See? Do you see how happy she is, and how she understood, and how when the light of understanding shines on any subject, that it dispels the mist and confusion arising from it?
And it's so light now inside.
There's a light in there.
Light. I was so heavy all the time inside. And now, if I
And that nobody can
could
describe
fly
it.
now.
No. Well, did you say you could die now?
Fly.
Oh, listen. Well, there's an old saying in the Orient: a man who finds the truth in the morning is not afraid to die in the evening. See, that's one of the reasons why we're all here, I hope, is that because I know this hedonistic society, this shallow society, this dog-eat-dog society, this disgusting society. I mean, America's fine, but what America's becoming is not fine. What America could become is what could emerge from discussions like this. So, do you want a valueless society? You see? You know, because that's what they're teaching in schools, no values, or mechanical values in church. You shall do this and you shan't do that. That's not human. That is only, that will do until we know better. But what we need we have to find our own values. Not our own values, meaning we invent them. But, you know, there's a scripture that says, you need not have any man teach you the truth. You see, but the Holy Spirit. And now what that means is that Each human being must live by an inner light. Just like flowers, all the flowers in the world live by one light. All the trees and all the plants, they live by one light. One light nurtures them all. And that one light touches all the plants everywhere, all the time. Now, it's the same thing with human beings. We don't see the light because it's not that kind of light. The light in the world is symbolic to the flower because, the flower is independent. All other creatures are dependent on the flower and the grass of the field and the trees because they're independent because they don't eat anything. But they're part earth and part heaven. And we must be part earth, but a different heaven within, a heaven within, and that kingdom of heaven is within us. And when that light shines, it takes away our fears, and it gives us a bright nature and a bright speech. And this bright speech would be similar to Jesus Christ when he was here 2,000 years ago, when the woman who was committed adultery, and they were about to stone her. You remember the dialogue. I mean, you had all been frozen in your tracks. Well, what are we going to do with her? It's the law of Israel. She's got to be stoned. He says, you're right on, man. And everybody was surprised because they were to catch him for breaking the law. Where's his compassion? He would say, don't do that, they would stone him. He says, you're right. Who is without sin? You cast the first stone. And because they were all guilty as hell, they all shrank away from the oldest, who was the most guilty, to the youngest. We go out guiltier than we came in, right? So be in our audience if you like what you heard. We like to dialogue with you, and be here Monday through Friday. And keep the program on the air. It's pretty sparse right now, still is, but I'm hanging in there with everything I've got. Seed money from gifts that people have given me, but it can only hold out so much. So please write to us and support us and obtain the materials, and you'll see that flashed on your screen in a few moments. Thanks for listening, and join us in our next program.
Part 2 is next.
Well, hello. Welcome once again to the program, How to Control Your Emotions. At the end of the program, we'll be selling some books, and we'll be asking for some contributions. Sorry to say that, but I hope that when you finished your viewing and listening to what I have to say, that you find it worthwhile. I mean, if this program has any value, you'll feel it in your heart. And I'm not going to use any emotions to trick you into contributing, because that is not what I want. To motivate you to do what's right is not right. To motivate you to give is not right. Giving and love must be original. It must be your own idea, and you mustn't think it's your own idea. It must come just because it's your own idea. And it must suggest it to itself. And only that giving is good to the receiver and good for the giver. I'm not saying that people haven't given me out of guilt for hating me and that sort of thing, but I have sort of discipline, and if you even drug money, probably people have given me drug money, and I hadn't known about it. And if I had known about it, I might have taken it too. But what I'm saying is there's a right way of doing everything. There's a right way of being compassionate. There's a right way of being supportive. But never must there be any motivation, any pressure. For instance, my children, I made them clean their teeth every night, but not with emotion. I didn't shock them, frighten them into one because I was too, I didn't have the love to be persistent until they understood it for themselves, why they should clean their teeth. And they should see it for themselves and pick it up on themselves. But most parents don't have love. We just program shock. And we wind them up, and for the rest of their life they're cleaning their teeth or rebelling, never cleaning their teeth, and their teeth are falling out. See? So I have a good little wind-up toys, cleaning their teeth, going to the dentist like good little goody two-shoes, or never going to the dentist and letting themselves fall apart. But our whole life is like that. We rebel, we conform, and when we get old and ugly That's what happens when you get old. I'm sorry to say, but it doesn't have to be that way, because that's what ugly is. Being motivated, emotionally involved, taking one's direction, purpose from something external to yourself. We're not sea lions. Ooh, 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 ooh. We don't do tricks. We don't, that's not what we're here for. We're here to love each other and to, by example, by not motivating and by letting others trying to motivate us. You know, after all, people are willful and mindless and willful, because all willful people are mindless. They don't have a mind of a person who's not willful. See, I have a will, but I'm not willful. Okay? So therefore, what I want, my will, is to do the Father's will. And if I can't get other people to do the Father's will, if I will them to do it, because then they will the Father's will, but it won't be the Father's will, it'll be my will.
They have to be willing.
Yeah, so I have to get you to be willing, but you can't get people to be willing either. So when people try to will me, what do? When people pressure me, after all people who will you have been willed. That's the will that's moving up through them. The one that's not from the Father of lights, but the Father of darkness, right? So all those people who are possessed by that will like to dominate, thinking thereby they are in control. But remember what we said in the last program. Something is already in control of them. They have the illusion, by creating a reaction, that they're in control. It's only an illusion. And by being involved with what they control, being excited, caught up with bullying and manipulating and making things happen and making people's weakness serve their greatness, they have an addictive sense of worth. So they have to become more ruthless and more manipulating. But what happens when you meet Roy Masters? It doesn't work. I don't will you back. It just, you start seeing what you're doing to me. When you start seeing what the wrong you're doing to me, what happens? Well, that seeing in itself is what I want. But if I don't have it, if I will you back, that light in me goes out. So if there's nothing in me that's alive and awake and bright and conscious, how can I, a sleeper, awaken the sleepers? If I'm awake and you can't put me to sleep, then I can awaken you to look at yourself. And when you look at yourself, you know what happens? Bingo. The relationship between you and the light that's within me, which is also within that person, I'm looking for a word. The union is made. For instance, my kids, I'll be there in just 1 second. My kids will be willful, and they get upset, trying to get upset me. That's how they get their way. If I get upset, that justifies them doing. That's supportive. If I will him back, then he has reason to go out and rebel. See, is that right? But if I don't, and he lays that on me, and I come back to him calmly, not reacting, the light in me shines bright. He has no justification. That light is making him look at what he's doing wrong by his own lights. See? Because if I don't upset him back again, the energy not to see and the energy to rebel is not there. Do you see that? When you're upset, you can't see. When you're upset, you rebel. So then he must look, and he's grateful for me not reacting, because then he says he slams the door, comes back in the house, and says, "You're right." But I didn't make him see it. That was love. Who understands that? Now, can you practice that on your children? If you did, you have a will, but you're not willful. And if your will is the Father's will, it will be that way. You will resist all wills without being willful. Resentment is the key. Don't be resentful. Other people's wills won't enter, and you won't outwill somebody's will and make them resentful, etc., etc. Question.
Right. When I was real young, I knew I was created for something specifically to do on this earth. And the battle of the wills that you talk about, my lights went out. And I'm 33, and I've been basically the walking dead, you know,
Yes.
for most of my life.
Yes.
And I couldn't connect. And my question before, which you consider, I believe, frivolous, I do not, because I'm still unconnected. You know, like you have your niche, so it's no problem. But someone like me, I don't, and I don't know how to find
Oh, you mean
it.
the niche in your work?
I know I was created. I can do things and make money, but I have no business there, and I know it. I can feel it. You know what I mean? But I don't know how to get. See, I had it right when I was a kid, and I remember.
Right.
I mean, I remember it very, very clearly. But I don't remember.
What
I mean,
threw
you
you
know,
off balance? What threw you off
oh, I
balance?
knew what that was, but I don't know how to get back to that surety that I had.
You're saying that Roy Masters has this niche, and he's a teacher.
Yeah,
I
right.
guess I'm a
That's
teacher,
what you
right?
were created for. I can tell it in people. I know what
Well,
it is. You know.
But we're all created teachers. Every person in this room is a minister of the gospel or God. But you have to have the Bible or the truth written in your heart, and not quote verses and chapters, because people only robot and wind-up toys, see, will be very impressed by verses and chapters and people who are in the know, who pull rank with that kind of knowing. So I don't expect you to be a Bible thumper and one of those so-called Christians or Jews or whatever. That's not going to help your family at all. But I'm saying I'm a minister in my own home long before I was a minister or teacher, a leader. And all men especially must be leaders and teachers in their own home, but by example, by love, not by the force that we're talking about. In other words, I would like my sons to be in my work, but I would also realize that they cannot. I'm coming to your question in a roundabout way. They cannot do what I do, except they become a success in their own life, and they must be able to practice what they preach, and they must learn to deal with business situations, give a good measure, you know, don't take advantage of your client, but guide them as if you were, as yourself wanted to be guided, so they can make a profit. Don't take all the profit. Let them make some. See, you know, guide them so they make good decisions, so that the decision is profitable and they're not sorry afterwards. Help them to make their own decision by giving the proper information rather than being a salesperson, which is all the opposite of what the world teaches. But coming to the point, they are doing that now, and they are growing in character. And doing their own thing is very important for you children of light, because it's much better for you to make your own decisions and live and die by your own lights than live by somebody else, some boss's light whose light is out. See? It's very frustrating. Most of them have lived only by violence and force, like the Russian. See? They know only to dominate because we're all weak, and we respond to the pressure, and we begin to give them, when we begin to think we don't know, and we wimp out to doubt, and we believe in the person that has made us wimp out to doubt, and they don't know either, and we're both, you know, the blind leading the blind, they both fall into the ditch. But coming to the point of finding what is your niche, what is your job, what can a potato farmer say, or the Australian Aborigine, what can he say about who can be a teacher, like the Pope, see? Who can be a teacher like a Roy Masters? I have this calling. One of us got through. I got through. Most of you are, you know, are ambulant cases, and most of you will die, except you have someone, a redeemer of some kind. And I got through like Moses got through. There's a few of us get through. I don't know how we got through, but a finger must have come down and says, you. And I don't know who me, I don't know why am I different. I'm not any different from you. I got through, and I don't know why, but that's good Lord's plan, and you recognize I got through, and I'm getting through to you, right? Now, I'm saying, don't worry about your calling. To hell with your calling. Because I don't care where you find yourself, a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker, there's always something that will light up and say, I can do that. There's a place here for me. It lit up for me. Nobody's doing what I'm doing. There are people who appear to be doing what I'm doing, but no one's really doing what I'm doing. So I had to really discover what to do. There was no one to teach me except my own spirit. And it taught me what to do, and it teaches me what to say, see, and how to invest, and when to have television programs, and when to cut them off, when to hire and fire, see, that sort of thing. It's guiding me, and the philosophy begins to form as I put one foot in front of the other. But even as a business, I come in contact with people, and in my contacts with people, they see I'm fair, sober, And people always come up to you, even though they don't know that you're a teacher. And I'm a buyer. They don't know I'm a teacher. I'm buying a television camera somewhere. They don't know I'm a teacher. And we get to talking, and I can always find out from people. Some people will always open their hearts to you, and there's a little family problem. And somehow it comes around, and you have a nice little piece of advice to give them, right?
Yeah.
And they say, hey man, how did you know that? I'm a minister. Mark masters in their real estate. They're always preaching to people about principles and things like that. And pretty soon they've forgotten the real estate and they're talking about problems and, you see, and how to spend their money and being wise and not being too impulsive and be patient. Don't buy this property, wait, if you're not sure. Teaching them that. They are ministers. You'll find ministry as a potato farmer. But you won't always stay a potato farmer, because I don't know, if you be a cleaning lady and you could clean so beautifully and become a ballerina cleaning lady, everybody would stop to see your ballerina, your ballet, right? How do you do it so well? Somebody would want you to be, to have a class in how to clean. And you have your own school. One thing always leads to another. One foot in front of the other. Save your money. When you walk into a store with your hard-earned money, that's healthy. With your money, even if you have to work labor for a while, that's good. See, don't hate your boss. Know always
I'm the
that.
boss.
Pardon? Oh well, but let's just spread it to others who may not be their own boss. If you happen to be in a labor camp, that's what it really is. It's a concentration camp when you're working for somebody.
How do you not hate him?
Well, how do you not hate him is another question, but not resent him, learn to be patient, and you see, stop getting your energy from reacting to your work, see? Stop making up for guilt, stop looking for approval, because all these tie you to these emotional things. Now we're coming back to they tie you because you can't get far from the things that you need to emotionally sustain your ego.
Yeah.
Because if you get far away from them, then you start to feel anxiety and guilt and something's wrong, and even though you hate your work, you have to go back there. So you have to do the thing that kills you. And as I'm saying, sooner or later in your life, if you don't do all these things properly, you'll never work yourself out of work, you'll never work yourself into your own business, and then you'll never work yourself into retirement. Because eventually, if you have your own business, you leave the other jobs for the people that once you did it. See, and then you become a good boss, and you teach them to go into their own business. See, and pretty soon they go up a notch, and the next one comes in, and your business gets bigger. And one day, you'll be retired, but you'll be retired through the wisdom and the spirit of the Creator, and not the wisdom of the government. Because look at all these people who are retired on Social Security. It's pathetic. If they'd followed the path of saving their money and being wise with their money, and going into their own business, or investing in property instead of it and buying a new car they didn't need, or sending their kids to college, see, which only perverted them, right?
Yeah.
It's a big nursery school. That's what college is, you know. It's one of those nursery schools where everybody gets sexually molested. And you send your kids to that because you're so compulsive. You don't know how to protect. It's college, at least, you see, and you close your eyes to the rest of what's going on there. Is that right? Okay. Well, anyway, did I get the point? You have a natural retirement after a while, if ever you're wise. But if you're dependent on the government, if you think that you can leave it to the government for your future and then go to Las Vegas and spend all your money because you know that the government's going to give you, your character is going to atrophy. There's no meaning, there's no point, there's no purpose, there's no progress, there's no revelation leading to revelation, and joy and success leading to success. No problems that you're going to solve, not problems you're going to meet because of the journey. And when you, on that journey, the problems will bring up questions, and questions will be forthcoming. In other words, every time you take a step forward, you're creating a problem. If solving one, you're creating another one. But if you create another one, it out to you for an answer. And the answer comes to you from within, and that's called character. See? But if you don't become emotionally involved with what you do, it will happen. But if you become emotionally involved in your work, it defeats that process. See? It only builds a pride and an ego. You take pride in your work, you love your work, you hate your work. Either way, there's pride. Isn't that right, Judge?
You get an identity from your work.
You get an identity from your work, and that, and even though you may be successful, you see, it's like Las Vegas. You're successful if it works. It encourages you to invest more of that same, another throw of the dice.
You lose your real identity.
That's right. So that you, even though you may, one of these days you'll become so prideful making these decisions because you think you've got it made, and you make the biggest mistake of your life. It's blinding you. The emotionality, the excitement of achieving is blinding you and involving you deeply. And then when it's all gone, you lost all your money, you lost all your friends. Or even if you have all the money in the world, you begin to see it's a dead end. Because what is the prize? What is the prize in life but character, virtue, a self within a self? See, then that self with a self steps out one day.
I like to use the analogy. I have lizards.
Wait 1 second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Rush, my darling. I have lizards in my backyard, and for a time last year, I was just not on a log. I couldn't get up to go to work, and I noticed the lizards on cloudy days. They take their energy from the sun. They're cold-blooded creatures, and they take their motivation from the sun. And without the sun, I can catch 12 of them, real easy. But when the sun
that's
is
a very nice analogy.
when the
isn't it?
sun is out, I can't catch one because they got their proper motivation. They're properly motivated lizards.
What are you catching them for?
Well, I'll tell you now. Bringing it to myself. If I'm properly motivated, I can get out and work 12 hours a day.
If
like
you're
effort.
if you're in the sun.
If I'm
if
in
there's
the
an
inner
light,
sun, inner sun.
inner sun.
There you go.
There
But-
is a lightness, a brightness within a person, and there's a darkness when there's light is not there, and you don't have the right
Well,
motivation.
the ambition pulls us away from the sun. I mean, our pride, our ambition, greed, and it draws us away from our inner motivation. And then once we're out to the outer
Easily
limits,
caught.
then there's somebody there waiting to catch us and gather us up. But as long as we're connected to our sun inside, nothing can catch us.
Now, do you know why you do that observation, meditation exercise? I tell you what happened to me a long time ago when I first started practicing this. I'm talking about 30 years ago, 27 years ago. I'm standing on the street corner. Remember, I'm practicing meditation, and I guess I've always been inwardly motivated. I guess I hadn't practiced meditation for a couple of days and just forgot. I was standing on the street corner, and suddenly I didn't feel like crossing the street. I had to make myself cross the street. I said, this is ridiculous. But you can laugh, but this is the way people are all through life. They take drugs, they take music, they have their coffee achievers, the coffee generation. They drink coffee to emotionally involve themselves.
You need a nagging wife.
They need a nagging wife. They need the pressures. Because they need the pressures, because everything that's external is supportive ego-wise. It supports the selfishness. Even a nagging wife is useful because she upsets you and you got enough energy to do whatever it is that you...
But you also
See?
become emotionally involved, so you don't have to look at yourself. If you're emotionally involved with everything else, then you could be a part of everything else, or you could judge everything else, but you don't have to look and see what you are.
Exactly. And now that was the question I asked on the first segment. What value... Now, see, it's much better it comes that way, and I still remember that I asked the question. What value is the emotional involvement besides identity, direction, energy, motivation? It is release from conscience. Because all that is external and stimulating externally, really, and anything that's exciting or upsetting it catches the ego in its downdraft, and it releases the ego from guilt. At the same time it does that, it nurtures the pride of life and selfishness. A woman is exciting. She's very supportive. You become emotionally involved with that, and you see that you become, men become more selfish. Ladies, haven't you been in love with a man or married a man, and the more you loved him, the more selfish you became? The more you loved your children, the more selfish they become? And then what you've got left is such a selfish little weasel that you feel like stomping on it yourself. Right? And you know, there's something about selfishness that's ugly, that doesn't look like it deserves to live. It's ugly, isn't it? And yet you created that and you don't know how you've done it.
Yes.
It's with a false compassion called love. It's always making up for guilt.
Yes.
Whenever you're guilty, but God has released you.
Yes.
Remember what you said?
Yeah.
He's released you from having to make up for guilt.
Yeah.
He's redeemed you from the whole process. That's why you feel light. But it's only because you've given up your selfishness. You've given up your pride. Whatever the suffering in your life has made you say, what am I here for?
Yes.
See? Isn't that right?
Yeah.
I've done wrong, and I don't understand how it is that I've done this
just
wrong. I didn't mean to do wrong, but I
just
did it
couldn't
anyway.
figure it out how or why was I so ugly. My inside felt so bad. And
But I have to stop you here because we're going to go off the air. It's very sweet, and I don't mean, she has a lot to say, this lady, but she said her inside felt so bad. But how do you make the inside feel bad? Good again. See, it is either to repent of the sin, to find the threshold where you can be really sorry, sorry means a change of attitude or ego. You can't be sorry honestly and still be egotistical. You can't be sorry honestly and be emotional anymore, because you don't need that emotion to function. A lot of people try to be sorry. You know, I love you, and have these tears, and can't you see I'm sorry? And they're always crying and saying that. Ever seen people who cry and very emotional when they say they're sorry? Don't believe it. They're trying to create their own sorrow. They're trying to create their own change. It's an ego thing. It's an emotional thing. Thinking, see, but it's a worldly sorry. It's a pernicious sorrow. But the kind of sorry that you have is without emotion. When you repent, there won't be a tear in your eye. You'll have the dry heaves, if you pardon the expression. In other words, one of these days you're going to feel like you're crying, but there won't be any tears. Who understands what I'm talking about? It's the soul that cries, and the soul, but the body doesn't envelop itself in emotions to do that. It's free from emotion. You'll never be sorry when you're emotional. You have to snap out of it. That's why I say when people are crying, snap out of it. They snap out of it, and then they can be sorry. Okay? Tomorrow, join us again. Perhaps you'd like to come down and be in the audience. The numbers are on the screen if you'd like to make a reservation on usually Friday nights here, sometimes Wednesday. Call and be a participant financially, because without the money, we can't stay on the air. So start with how to control your emotions and how your mind can keep you well. And the information is on the screen. Thank you very much, and join us again.
Foundation of Human Understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the Foundation of Human Understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Hello, welcome once again to the program, How to Control Your Emotions, and that's about what we're going to continue talking about from now to infinity, I hope. as long as you support the program. And we've been talking about emotional involvements and how dangerous they are, and how we get our strength, our identity, who we are, a sense of worth, even direction, a sense of purpose from those relationships. And actually, what gives life to those relationships is the cause of our death. There's two parts of us. Unlike animals, we have a spirit. What encourages the ego animal part kills the spirit. It deadens us. So every emotional involvement you have, whether you're involved with a ball game, whether you're involved with a rock and roll, and imagine yourself becoming a rock and roll star like a lot of kids are today. They're crazy, you know, a lot of them kids. They're totally involved in the music, and their ambition now is to become a rock and roll star because that's their identity. You get your identity from your emotional involvement with the music, and in order to go on being that person, because you can't be anything else once you've been corrupted and violated by that music, you cannot be anything except by the idol that seduced you. So you have to get deeper and deeper, more emotionally involved with people, places and things, whether it's rock and roll stars, whether it's your work, whether it's your wife or women. Isn't that right? You know about that.
That's right. That's right. I was just talking to you earlier this evening, you know, and then I came to the realization within me that I had been woman-centered all my life.
And involved.
You know, and I can see where it started from. It started from childhood. It started from a father that was cruel, that would beat me with razor straps, whip me with switches, you know, kick me with a boot. Probably my mother, you know, steered him into that direction, but then I would run to my mother for refuge.
And
See,
then
I would run to my mother for refuge,
the
and there I would find comfort.
all running to the mother trick.
Right. And there I'd find my comfort, and it became a pattern in my life.
Yes.
See, and I married, and my wife was my mother.
And then when she died,
And when
your whole
she
world
died,
fell apart.
My world fell apart, and I found another mother. And then when she left me, I'm deserted, you know.
And you,
I don't know where to turn. I'm at the bottom. And I would go to any length to support that woman.
scented being.
Right, that woman-centered
Even
being
kill,
in me.
murder. With some
Anything it
people,
would
once
take.
it depends on what the identity is. You're so desperate because it is a life. You know, if you made a god out of somebody, if you get your support from a person, and your whole life revolves around that person, and that person dies or cheats on you, and walks away from you, then who you are is fractured. What happens is you discover that you're nothing. And all the time you didn't know that you were nothing. You thought you were something. And you successfully eluded the knowing that you were nothing by the lie, the emotional involvement, which comes in through the emotionally sustained lies, the illusion that you are something you're not. That's called ego. And so that as long as we have emotional nurturing, no matter what it is, rock and roll, wife, anything, as long as we have that, our ego continues to grow dependent. Doesn't grow, it grows ugly.
And then you become resentful at yourself.
You get resentful over realizing what a fool you are,
Right.
because you see, there's something about your ego that does not love reality. It loves the illusion and the illusion provider. And in worshiping and involving yourself deeper in the provider, you take your identity from that. And actually, what you're dealing with is not good but evil. And that's what you're becoming, behind the mask of everybody who pretends to love you, who allows you the luxury of the flesh, of the involvement, the escape into that person, the renewing of self, selfish self. Hear the word? Selfish, ego, selfish, self. A self that doesn't feel guilty, feeling selfish. See, it doesn't feel guilt because it's escaping. It's releasing. It's being released from guilt while it's becoming more selfish and doesn't know selfish is how wrong it is. But behind the mask of that person, behind the facade, is evil. Is that right or not? Did you find that?
That's true. There's evil there, and you would try to become anything that you had to become to support that evil.
To serve you.
Or to serve me.
But then what you become evil also, don't you?
Whatever identity you had to search out. And you would do this in pride, through pride and ego. You would search this out and thinking it was coming from God. And I would lose my identity in a book. I would lose my identity in some philosopher and
That's right.
take on his identity and try to portray that, and it was not me.
You're not going to do that with me, are you?
No.
You know that if you're going to get involved with someone, I suppose it's better, as I said to you in the office, it's better, it's good enough to be involved with me. I mean, it's better than most situations because I keep throwing you back on yourself. And very few people that you become involved with, emotionally involved with, whether it's Reverend Schuller or whoever, because he plays that trick too, you know. He allows himself to be loved and worshipped, and he has the stained glass windows for people to draw something from that. See, and then once their identity becomes rooted in this splendor, they think of themselves as splendid people, and it has to be more and more splendid, and they will contribute to that, and they're afraid for it not to exist. See, they're afraid for it not to exist. That's why a person can pull their love away from you, pull their support, expose you to yourself, and make you appreciate them more. You run after them because the pain of being exposed to yourself and ceasing to exist to this wonderful, fine, outstanding person. See, it's the most painful experience because you're talking about the death of the soul. You're feeling that you're dying, but you've always been dying, but you didn't know that because you had the illusion that it was living, and they were the providers. See, and in your selfishness, you needed the illusion because selfishness can't exist without the illusion and the emotional involvements, the emotions which involve and sustain the pride in its illusions, you see. And this is what we have in this world. I look around and I see the world is totally mad. And everybody seems to be happy. You would say a drug addict who snorts all day long and you see he'd do anything to sustain. It's like you were an addict to women, weren't you? You do anything to sustain. You do anything for them.
I was an addict to women. I was an addict to whatever it took to make
that person love you.
Make that person love me.
So, and when you got the love, you were able to emotionally involve yourself and get the release and the reassurance that you were somebody again. But then the morning after the night before, you realized it was just the opposite. You had become less, not more. And what did you do? You hated reality. You hated the knowing of that. See? And the pain of that caused you to take a nosedive in the next experience and the next one. And some people, it concentrates on one thing like drugs. They can get deeper and deeper in poisoning themselves.
I was there.
You were...
No, I was everything, Mr. Master. I take drug, but from the doctor.
Oh, from the doctor.
Then I cheated. I went for one doctor, and then I went to another doctor, and then I went to a third doctor.
And they all gave you
more and more. And I have a handful a day already. When I found you, I was in a cesspool very deep down. I don't know how God lifted me out of it, I don't know. But
He did.
Yes.
Yes, you see, because you see, what it was is that you didn't love illusion. That a big percentage of the people watching this program immediately are threatened by what I'm saying right now. The viewers, they're crossing the dial. This guy's crazy, because I'm threatening the illusion.
No.
See, to them, sanity is insanity, and insanity is sanity.
Yeah.
Trivia is something, and something is trivia.
How does that guy know what I was doing? I thought somebody told you. Yes.
Yeah. But because it really is your own knowing. See, when you hear me speak, it's because I'm speaking from the me and you.
Yes.
I'm speaking from me to you, but I'm speaking so as to awaken the me or you to the me in you, see?
Yes.
To make you whole again. And when you're glad for a person like myself, some people are not glad. They throw bricks, throw tomatoes, they crucify. They still love their illusion. They love their devil god, even though they may not think of themselves as devil worshippers. They love their devil god. And they could be Christians. See? They could be Christians worshipping the devil. But all because the whole purpose of Christian ethics and thinking in its truest sense is to release you from emotional bondage. That's what sin is. Emotional bondage to people, places, and things. Ever since Eve. I mean, the first emotional involvement and the lie.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced stealing something? Have you ever been tempted to take something and felt your heart boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom? Excitement for the first time? It says, take me. And you look both ways. And then you do it. And now your conscience follows you all, right?
Yes.
Now you've crossed the border and you come under another system, but you become emotionally involved, and in order not to feel guilty, you have to drink, you have to distract
I did
yourself.
that too.
See, you find yourself, whenever you do something wrong, when you're seduced, and you can either keep doing it, trying to find the elusive satisfaction of stealing by stealing more, right?
Yeah.
You see? Trying to find the freedom from guilt by drinking more, but that only makes you more guilty because you're rejecting reality for the sense of the reassurance that wrong is right. See?
That's right.
And all involvements, whether it's music, whether it's food, ever since Eve, that first emotional involvement, this society, the whole world, has used emotional involvements. The involvements with life, the love of the world, the Bible says it that way. It makes you an enemy of God, but it's a friend of the selfishness that's in you. It's a friend of what's gone wrong with you. And it's traditionally with men, it's through women. And women mother that. And it's a false compassion. And you envelop yourself in that false compassion. But all of that, all which is wicked in this world, encourages this sort of involvement and gives you this kind of elusive happiness. See, this guilty innocence. And I best tell you, John has been listening to me for a long time in the back there, and I try to tell him that he was too emotionally involved with me because all his life he's been involved with somebody. He jumps from one person to another. A lot of people go from one religion to another. Some people go from one wife to another, a husband to another, always trying to find a better sense of satisfaction from the next person, because each relationship produces its own dissatisfaction. You start to see the mask, through the mask, on the other side of it, it's bound to reveal itself for what it is. So once you started to hate it, love it, then you start to see it dominate you. Then you see it's making you ugly instead of beautiful. I mean, that's the truth that's in you that shows you that. And then when you see it's making you ugly instead of beautiful and controlling you instead of making you a pauper instead of a king or a queen, then you start to hate the reality. You start to hate it, and hating it becomes the holy grail. You start to hate it, and you start to crusade against it. See what I mean? You could have a political party against it. See? To expose it. And you think, now you're doing the right thing. You're emotionally involved with trying to expose this terrible evil in the world, see? But you're still hating wrong, feeling right. It's still an emotional involvement. You can't. Hating wrong is not the same as, and feeling right is not the same as, loving what's right. See? And being right. Now.
Which one is a winner, bad or good?
Which one's a winner? You mean, does it always seem like evil triumphs? Is that what you're saying?
No, somebody say a bad is good, somebody say a good is good. Which one is a winner?
Which
is win?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
No?
But in our society, our language is reversed. It's bad, man. It's bad. I mean, that's good. Bad is, if
like
it's bad, it's bad, and it is bad. It's bad to me, and they call it bad. But what is bad is good. See what I mean? we start turning around the meaning of words.
Let's say somebody stealing and cheating people get rich and he's happy, and somebody believe in God and good, no steal, nothing, and he's suffering, he don't have nothing, he don't even have food.
Well,
Which one
right?
is the winning? Who's right?
Well, yeah. Well, you're not looking deep enough. That's what I understand what the lady is saying. She's not looking deep enough. See, because you don't really know who's happy. You really don't know. You can't tell by looking at a person's face. You see, he puts on a face. Some people are miserable with their money, but they put on a face, and their greatest happiness is to make you follow the same path as them. But if they showed, see, they're addicted into, in other words, how can I say that? They could have a lot of money and get ahead and not be happy with what they have, but they don't dare betray it. Because whatever happiness they have comes from whatever they're doing to you. But the next happiness is, the happiness is not now making money, the happiness is deceiving you into following the same path.
But that don't last, and they have to.
You understand that?
Yeah.
You know, let me say before, there's another way of doing that, is men, when they become sexually satiated, full of sexual fulfillment, and it becomes a great pain, so that once they start to enjoy the sex more and more and more until the pleasure becomes so painful, guilt-laden, that they can't function sexually anymore. What else do they do? They've got all the sex they want, and they can't do it anymore, but they're still miserable. What do? They used to make their wives sleep with another man and enjoy. See, their greatest happiness has come from now corrupting and violating and following in the same path of perversions as themselves, setting other people up to be perverted. That becomes the happiness. Is that right?
I wanted to add, Roy, that the person she's describing, the bad guy with all the money, what profits a man who gains the world yet loses his soul? And she used the good man who suffers. A good man is willing to suffer for the just cause.
Yes, no.
And is happy in that suffering.
No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong about that, and you're right and you're wrong. It's not deep enough, is what you're saying. And see, because we do not know who is happy when they appear to be happy, and we do not know just by looking what's going on in a person's soul. A person can be a rich person, and if he's acquired his riches in a proper way, he can be just as contented as a person who has nothing and lost it, and not bitter about having lost it. Yeah. See, the secret of life is, I've taught my kids to say, look, you know, life is this: if you make a lot of money, then don't let it go to your head. But if you lose, as a matter of fact, it's more character building to learn how to lose properly than to win. But if you learn how to lose and graciously and not be bitter, you will become better, and then you'll have it all back 10 times as much as you had before, and it won't go to your head. Most people don't know how to take money. They don't know how to take fortune. See, they don't know how to take success. It kills them. Yeah. See? Yes. Now, another question right here.
Well, I add a statement regarding the lady's question. There is a false happiness that people have, where, let's say, they can do whatever they want and be quite satisfied and be content, but they can't see where they're losing, you see?
Yeah, well,
and they can be so degenerate that they can actually bring them a sort of pleasure and happiness, but it's not really happiness, it's false.
For the hedonistic, godless person, where, you know, he's happy where God is not. See? He's happy like a pig in a trough. Mm-hmm. But he's a pig and doesn't know he's a pig. But the illusion tell him he's a man.
It's like a drunk.
And he's happy with that because he's committed. There are some people who are committed all the way to being a happy pig, as if happy pig was being a happy man. Exactly. And they don't want to know anything else. Yeah. And of course they...
And they have a certain contentment, but they can't realize that it's like they're being paid the lowest wages that they can get, and they don't realize anything higher.
Yeah, that all goes without saying. And I say to you that those people who end up in the, you know, smothering, sinking in their own muck, will eventually, because they have souls, they will eventually experience the spirit of that leading. We all have in our lives a destiny. It's a fate. If it's the wrong destiny, it's fate. And if it's the right destiny, it's a destiny, a calling. And I don't understand the mystery. All I can do is call out those and call to those who want to know.
I found it out, Mr. Mason.
Yes, go ahead.
I was a little girl, 4-year-old, and I was questioning who I am or what I am. And the trouble began after. I had very hard, my heart it was always heavy. When I grew up, we went dancing and everything before the Second World War, and everybody was happy. But my feeling was inside, why I am dancing here, what I am doing that crazy thing.
See? Hear what she's saying?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see? In this lady's broken English, it's perfectly clear of what she's saying. Perfectly clear.
Yeah.
It's the same question. You'll wake up one morning. You know, some of you have lived a lie all your life. The gentleman who was testifying before about his involvement with his wives as mothers, he said in the office, and I think I can quote him, that he's fooled himself all his life. And he's been lost all of his life. One morning he wakes up. Destiny, not fate. There's just so much of this emotional involvement you can get. Some people can take more than others. But I suppose you do have an earth life. You have an ego life that has to grow from being involved. Little kids are like that. We tend to become emotionally involved, and with our play, with our toys, be greedy, stealing it from each other and fighting over things, sibling rivalries. And there's a certain amount of earthiness, the earth self that you can get. And then somehow you are a person. The Bible says it very succinctly, may I say. Man is first of nature, then of spirit. He was first of spirit. He fell to nature. Yes. And so therefore man used to be born of God. He's now born of woman. That's why the Bible refers to two men. Man born of woman, and son of man, son of God. There's another son of, I won't mention his name. That's one notch down. But you see, in the way back, we are earthy. Man is born of, and then he does all these things, the sex and the pleasures and the music. But a thoughtful person gets his fill of that, and he now is the fallen Adam, and he can't get any mileage out of it. And suddenly, he is detached and says, what am I doing this? There's something's wrong. And you see everybody else doing all these things and like they have no sense. And you think, well, am I weird or something? Right? Yeah. Something wrong with me? And people look at you and they see that you're different. And it scares them and they ridicule you. And they try to pull you in. See? And you're ready to go on and face reality and find your heritage, your destiny. And they're still playing around the little piggy little pleasures, and it's a lonely journey. But I must tell you this, you will know when you have made or have come close to making the grade, when you wake up one morning and suddenly money, power, prestige, your boat, your car, your children, your wife, suddenly they all seem to be distant. You still love them, but you love them in a different way. You still look at them, but you're not fixated to them. You know what I mean? If you're fascinated with your wife, you see, your eyeballs pop out, and you all of a sudden you feel a feeling in your loins, and you can't stop looking, and there's more feeling, and then she loves you for that, and that starts the whole round again, right? That's one way of looking. But suddenly, you see she's a person, and you see her differently. And she sees you looking differently. Have you ever had men look at you like that? Have you ever had a man look at you not like that? No, you haven't. Hardly ever. See? See? That's why you love me, because I can look at you that way. See? And then you feel clean. Well, the other one you feel dirty, don't you, when men pull out of you that way. So you start looking at things and you start affecting it in a positive way what you observe. Because now that you're the observer, you're a co-creator. Not a procreator, but a co-creator. Procreators are not co-creators. You have to transcend your procreations. Boing, that type of looking, you know what I mean? And now you start looking differently. You start to become a man. You start becoming a woman. Less and less involved because somehow you're being sustained within and you don't need the involvements. And you can relate to everything different. Your food, your wife, your children. And it's a pure, much purer, not emotional. It's what I call being unemotionally involved. Okay, now, I don't know how many people can be unemotionally involved with this program because I can just see everybody jumping up and down on pogo sticks. But calm down and we can talk again tomorrow night on the program. And if you'd learn to calm down, you'd understand what I'm saying a lot better. So please write to the foundation, ask for the cassettes to teach you this observation exercise. And ta-ta till tomorrow.
Part 4 is next.
I don't know if you've been watching the last several evenings. I don't know if I can carry on the subject any further unless the audience wants to make some more additional comments. This emotional involvement, how destructive it is. Has anybody here in the audience, besides the few people who have been helping me keep the conversation going, are there anybody here would like to talk about an emotional involvement so I can sort of hallucinate on it a little bit? Yes.
Can I add some more?
Yes, you can add some.
I've been helping you all evening.
Yeah, it's all right.
I think
we have a few bright spots here and every now and then. And
I see my emotional involvement with you has helped me because there's this distance you keep and it's thrown me back on myself. I felt that devastation that you say that the person who can't find their identity from that involvement feels, but it's been a blessing because I see now that it's not your identity that I want, but that identity that lives through you can
also live through
lives through me.
It's our common Father.
There
isn't
you
it?
go.
It's what makes us. It what makes every human being in the world. If we could all have that same attitude, children of the same Father. I think wasn't it a great philosopher lived 2,000 years ago said. He says, there's no Jew or Greek or Gentile, but all are one. See, in Christ. I don't know how he said it. I forget, but it's our identity that we seek in everything and everybody, every person, place, or thing, can only be found within ourselves. And as a teacher, I have to suffer some kind of outrage by people who start to send me money, who start to like me, especially Jessica right over there. I gave her hell the other day. My wife almost hired this young lady. And she's been on methadone and all kinds of garbage all over life. She's a totally unstable creature, isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, I know you don't mind me saying that. And she's had troubles all of her life. She's 40 years old now, and one mess after another, always one emotional mess, one transference after another, each one worse than the one before. Now she transfers to me. She's very good typing, she's very good, and she's very good because she gets approval. She's very good at doing things to get your approval. So my wife almost hired her, and she almost, she had a high better than all the drugs she ever took. I'm working for the Foundation of Human Understanding, right? Ain't I something, right? Is that right?
I was bragging.
And I gave you a kick in the rump, didn't I?
Yeah, it was
And the liberals would say I was cruel, right?
It was the best thing.
Best thing you ever did. Because I could not play into that. Now, you could also freak out, go to a mental hospital, and then sue me for being cruel. Right? Because it would be, in the eyes of the world, a very cruel thing to not respond to that.
At first.
Yeah, at first. No.
Yeah.
But do you understand how I don't respond? Let me just I'm not cold. See, I know when people pull on you. Have you ever had people pull on you?
Yes.
Suck on you? As they pull something out of you? And they're doing something for you, to get you involved so that they can pull it out of you, because if you weren't involved, if you didn't respond to the ploy, the game, they couldn't pull it out. So there's two reactions to that. One is to rebel against it, and then they feel hurt. Now that anger, when you rebel, you have no grace. You're angry, you know what people are trying to do, they're trying to pull something out of you, you hate that. You're being manipulated, you're being used. You know it, you sense it, you feel it. You overreact. So now you go the opposite way. Now the other person hates you. You tempt the person to resent you for that. Now the resentment in that person makes them even more empty. And the resentment that person feels for you is another emotional involvement with you. They feel like they've done you something wrong, and if they loved you more, if they served you more, perhaps you'll give them what they want.
I do that with my husband sometimes.
Then that lady, do you understand what I'm saying? It's a proper way of doing that. Just, if I forget, because I've got to get questions here, if I forget to tell you the proper way of rejecting a person, remind me before the end of the session, would you? I want to give this lady some floor space.
I've just started high school, and I found that I really hate it. And my parents, I can tell my mom. Oh, okay.
Thank you. How old are you?
Okay, I'm 15.
Oh, well.
My father, I hate him.
Yes.
And he doesn't understand anything. My mother understands, you know.
She a little bit more sympathetic to
she
how you
understands.
feel?
Yeah, what's going on.
High school is a very deadly place, because you know they're the places where you learn to be emotionally involved in all the wrong things. And this is where they teach you corruption and violation, all the emotional, that takes away your identity. You know why the kids can't say niet?
Yeah.
They can't say niet. You know why? It's because they need the support of all the things, all their friends that have violated them. They've got their identity from that. So how can you say no to God? Whoever gives you your identity, whoever violates you, puts a little bit of them in you, and the little bit of them in you cries out to them always and clings. And in order for you to, the little bit of them in you to exist, which you think is you, it isn't. But it's the only you got. So now it's survival. Now you can't say no to those demands of your friends, who are not really your friends, and they make you perform. They make you a slave. Because you need, it needs approval. The real person doesn't need approval. I need your money, but I don't need your approval. See what I mean? In other words, my character is not at stake. If you don't send me money, then I can't do the program, but I'm still a whole person. I'm still real me. I'm not going to be bummed out. I'm not going to, you know. I can still lose everything, and I'm still me. I'll find some other way of making a living, right? See? I like to do this, and if you like it, then I'm giving you a good service, and that's the way it is, you know, and it's good for you. It's good for you to support the program on those conditions. It's good for your character. But if you're doing it because you see it's right, you're not emotionally involved with me. But if I make you feel sorry for me, like some of those preachers do, see, then I can make you feel guilty and get you to make up to me for guilt. And I can tell you how wonderful you are for sending money, and then you are wonderful, but you're addicted to sending money, otherwise you're not wonderful. See? You're going to feel terrible for not sending money. And I got you. And that's not healthy. But anyway, how did I get away from you?
I think it basically has to do with my father, because he's always, you know, he's
Where's
the
your
man
mother
of the
this
house.
evening? Hello. We going to be able to help her?
I don't know. I would start World War III if I...
You must start World War III, young lady. You see, a man isn't anything, and a woman, when I say a man, I always mean women, mankind. Sorry about that. I can't say womankind, I mean mankind, we can include ladies. But unless you stand for something, you ain't worth a tinker's cuss.
Well, we're making progress, but to quit school...
Draw a line. School is going to destroy her. She knows it. School isn't what it used to be. It was bad enough when I was growing up. Now, it's a concentration camp.
Yeah.
See? It's a concentration camp of the worst order.
Yeah.
And don't try to change the schools, because in this world you can't expect that anything bad will change for good except it be saved, and they're not going to be repentant. The teachers' union don't believe in repentance. They just find another way to make things better, and it's worse. Oh, well, it's not so good. Maybe we can improve it this way. Send me more money. And you send more money and they make it worse. And then they make you feel guilty for not sending more money. Yeah. See? And you're going to feel guilty because you shouldn't have sent money in the first place. You shouldn't have been pressured, manipulated. Well, we're going to take the fireman off the job and we'll take the policeman off the job. Don't you feel guilty for not giving your kids a good education? Send more money. So you feel guilty and you don't understand that's manipulation of your mind. You send more money now, you think you're doing the right thing, but you're not. You're being manipulated. And every time you're manipulated, you're more guilty. And when you're more guilty, you feel like it's your fault. These kids are not getting a good enough education, and they make you feel like it's your fault. Same principle as the preachers work on TV, right? What I'm saying is, getting away from the point, you must fight a war. You must never be friends with the enemy. You must take a step back, draw a line, and dare him to cross. And that must be immediate. And when you have courage, when you have found salvation at the light of truth, you see you have no other way but to do that. No matter what you must suffer, what you must go through. Is that right, young lady? Wouldn't you wish your mother would take a stand?
Yeah.
Your father won't do it. But who will do it for you? You can't fight your own battle. You're only 16. The only thing a young lady can do is when they have mother and father against them, and the truant officer, and run away in jail. That kind of possibility is to go to school and learn only what you decide to learn, and learn not to respond to the pressure. Learn to be your own person. In other words, you go to the class and you're obedient. You don't hate it, and you don't love it, and you learn exactly what you decide to learn and not a nickel's worth more. And if you don't pass graduation at 16, you just don't. See? Meanwhile, you learn, you retain your own integrity. You retain your own identity. You don't hate it. You don't love it, because if you love it, you'd be in trouble. But if you hate it, you'd be in trouble too, because that's an emotional involvement. Sometimes you feel so guilty for hating something that you feel you have to love it in order to get rid of the guilt of hating it. See? So you could become, if it isn't one thing you hate, you turn around and be loved by something else. That takes away the guilt. But then you find yourself enslaved to that too, right? You hate something over here. You hate your mother over here, and you go out and get a girlfriend over here. Your mother dominates you, you hate her. Your girlfriend supports you, and you feel like you're being served. You're not. You're being seduced. And then you find out. You realize that you're a slave, emotional slave. You become emotional all over again. You feel guilty. You try to make up. You fight, you make up. You fight, you make up. Pretty soon you kill one another. You divorce into the next emotional relationship. Note, when you go to school, this is for the young people. This is for the young people here who are listening to the program. If you have uncaring, stupid, dull-minded Neanderthal parents, most of you are. Most of you are Neanderthals who don't understand there's something wrong with school and sacrifice yourself to that hedonistic system, right? You sacrifice your kids to that because you haven't got any guts not to send your kids to school. You haven't got guts to fight your husband or fight your wife. You don't love your children enough. You don't stand for anything because you need their approval. You need your wife's approval. You know, what will people think if you don't send your kids to school? See? You just don't have anything going for you. To stand for something in this world means to be deprived of all the sustaining affections of your ego. It's precisely what you want. You don't want people to love you. You don't want them to hate you, but if they do, that's their problem, because you don't hate back. See, that's the way you do it. So everybody begins to feel silly. They got egg on their face. You're making them face You're putting them back, see, reminding them of what they're doing wrong, making them aware, making them self-conscious. All right? And you start to win a lot of friends, because of those people who see this light in you are going to start respecting you. And then that quality in you will draw to you the right kinds of friends, with the right kind of support, the right kind of women, the right kind of husbands. Because if you have a right person loving a right person, nothing is destroyed. But if you have a wrong person loving a wrong person, so the wrong person feels right when he isn't, then you have destruction and emotional involvement. Right people love each other in a non-emotional way. They're non-emotionally involved. You become emotionally involved with someone, the closer you get to a person, the further you are from who you are. The more you are them. And you hate each other. You can't live with them because they're destroying you. You can't live without them because you discover that you are destroyed. Who understands me? Good for you. Hip, hip. Okay.
What you were saying about when people see that you have this value, one person could make a whole bank feeling, if you're waiting in line and everybody's, separate sometimes. I see myself separate and everybody's impatient, and the guy behind me will turn around and walk out, or in front of me, because he sees I'm looking at him.
I make everybody thoroughly miserable.
I'm sure.
I mean, that people can't wait to get out of the elevator.
I bet you have a great time at the DMV.
Especially when I'm in Las Vegas doing my radio program. I've always got some choice remarks for people when I'm going up and going down. I says, going down in more ways than one. I always have mini sermons, and people look at me. Boop, boop. They go out of that. Sometimes it's appreciated, though. Sometimes it is. You know, you never know it's a pig until you hear it oink. So don't be afraid to spread your light. Some people say, just a minute, this guy's making sense. Other people will laugh and, persecute you, treat you like you're dirt.
Yeah.
And of course you're not dirt, and you know it, you're not dirt. And since you're not emotionally involved with anybody, nor can you be, they can't transmit the idea to you that you are. See? And they only make themselves feel dirty. I'll show you a little secret. Ready? See this book? I'm going to give it to you, but don't take it. Okay? What's happening? You're not taking it, right? Yeah. Well, so don't take anything from anybody. See, because if they want to put poison in you and you don't take it, they poison themselves. Their own poison. Revenge is mine, saith the Lord, right? I have discovered in my life that if I don't get involved with revenge, if people give me a lot of money or try to obligate me, I don't feel obligated. They may want to, they may not think, they may think sometimes by a sizable amount that they I'm would be more involved, right? I'd be more respectful. Not if you gave me a nickel or 10 million, it wouldn't make any difference. Say thank you. I'm not involved. See, so the more more emotionless I am, the more I have control over my own life. And that's the way it must be for all of you. Yes. I actually forgot my train of thought, but I will come back in a few minutes.
You wanted us to remind you to talk about how to properly reject somebody?
Yes, and thank you for that. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that when people try to get my approval, and people do, and I, being not a people pleaser or approval-seeking person, say being complete within myself, can't buy into that game. See, they will naturally feel rejected. The first thing, they're going to feel like you're a cold fish, that you're not grateful. See, you would give me $10,000, I'd say thank you, but I'm not going to gush over you. See? And then you would probably want to expect more than just thank you very much, and I'll put it in the bank and I'll spend it. See? You probably want more than that. People do. So when people send me money, I don't even send them a letter back. Haven't you noticed it? All they get is a cancelled check. Because then they begin to see, well, they may not even send any money after that because they may feel rejected. But I'm teaching them something. I can't help it. It's the way I am. A little girl sends $6. I might write her a little letter. See? But a person sends 10 million, I might not say much. See? So what it is, they're going to feel rejected, and then they're going to see their motive for giving. I want you always to see your motive. You mustn't give to get. You mustn't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. You don't love to be loved. You know, you don't give to get, you don't love to be loved. And you don't, when you hurt back. You don't have any reciprocal thing. See, and so therefore when you're not emotionally involved and you're complete within yourself, nothing can hurt you. See? And when people give to you, you don't feel obligated to give. Because we feel obligated, you can't love. I can't love when I'm obligated. See?
It's a real victory to not to see that sense of obligation in yourself and refuse to go along with that. I mean, it's an accomplishment for some of us to see how gullible
we've always been.
Yes, and to for once to not fall into it. It's wonderful.
But you can even see when people smile at you.
Right.
Well, hello, Joan.
Yes.
How are you, dear? And all of a sudden you feel your mouth cracking going up, and you don't want to smile. You feel obligated just to smile because they're smiling.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to learn to control even that.
Right.
You have to be just pleasant. But you don't want to smile. You monkey see, monkey smile, right?
Right. When you look at yourself, though, you're constantly doing that. I mean, every moment of the day, there is this something happening, and you are either reacting or there's some kind of response between you and what's happening. And
if people love you, you love back.
Automatic.
If people love you, you love back. That's obligation. They've loved you to get you to love them. It's slavery.
Right.
See,
and you
they
sense
should not expect you to love them back. But if they do some kindness to you in the future from their own goodness,
yes,
that's something that is loving you.
Right.
See, that is loving you back.
Without strings.
Without the strings. You always think of people loving with strings. Sometimes you're afraid to take gifts.
Right.
Because of the strings, the obligation. So, and if you're strong within yourself, you say, no, thank you. Is there strings to this? They'll say, no. Maybe they're lying to you. See?
Uh-huh.
And see, if they may be lying to you, they may say, no, there's no strings, no obligation, but there is.
There is.
But if you're strong in yourself, what you do is you take the gift. Then it comes time to get back the favor, and you don't give it.
And that takes something to be able to handle that.
That's right.
And you know they're expecting.
You see? But see, it's a good thing. I have taken the gift, and I'm not greedy. I didn't take it because I was greedy. I took it. I really could care less for the gift. Right. See? If it was given in the wrong spirit. But as long as I ask the question, am I obligated? They'll say, no, it's yours. But I know it. I may not know it's true, but I may know it's true. It doesn't make any difference. As long as I've said it, mm-hmm. They will come to me to see if the gift has done this little thing, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. If my ego has come down to feel honored by it, even if it's a flower in an airport.
Right.
So you have to buy a book. You're always obligated, right? The give to get, right? Even little things.
Right.
Free gift when you buy your car in a car lot, right? Mm-hmm. Come in for your little $2 camera. Mm-hmm. Everybody got a free camera. But when you can't have anything free, you're obligated the minute you take something free.
That's right.
You can't resist it. Only kings get things free. So for a moment you feel honored by that little crummy little camera. Mm-hmm. A little tidbit of approval. You're a slave for the sake of it.
You got something for nothing.
You see, but you have to understand, it's a gift from the wrong God to the wrong God.
Exactly.
See, to the wrong spirit. So therefore, as a teacher, I can take that gift and expose them. Mm-hmm. It's almost like something similar. Mother, darling, dear, would you go to the post office for Mummy, or get me some milk down at the grocery store, dear? No, Mum, I'm busy right now. Will you, dear? Say the same sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But if a child was strong and wise, and then the mother gets angry because she tried being nice to you, and it didn't work. Now she tries being mean to you.
She gets mad.
And then you could turn to that person and say, why are you mad? Well, I asked you to go nicely.
Right.
No, what you did was manipulate me, right? And when nice didn't work, you tried to make me angry to make that way, make me angry to feel guilty.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's how you're going to deal with people. That's exactly how you're going to deal with people from now onwards. You just blow their cover. And nobody can stand in front, and you are the master of that situation. But it's better to have a good one, good master, a Roy Masters preferably, than a bad one.
Even if we make some pretty faltering attempts at all of this, which is inevitable, it's better to make a faltering attempt, isn't it, than to just not try at all, to just go along.
But a faltering attempt, you must be in your center when you do this.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're going to get your energy. You're going to get the energy to resist by being upset, and then you're going to feel guilty, and you're going to be suckered right into that, giving into
and
it.
into it worse.
Worse.
Yes.
So it's like the story of the general who, when he calculates what the losses are to strike at his enemy, he's had so many tanks, so many guns, so many aircraft. He better sure he has enough ammunition before he makes the first strike. Yeah. Otherwise, the enemy's going to have everything that he has. See what I mean? He's going to lose all his tanks and all his guns and everything. So you better make sure that you're poised to make the right strike. So meditate. And may I suggest you do meditate. The book, How Your Mind Can Keep You Well, it's on the screen. There's a special kind of observation, concentration exercise which will defocus your mind from being lost in thought. So you become objective and not emotionally involved, but unemotionally involved. Involved with yourself, see, but not emotionally involved with others. Finding your identity from within yourself to deal with others, rather than losing yourself in others, trying to deal with them. And evolving dinosaurs, but that's what it is. Thanks for listening, and support the program, and join us in our next broadcast tomorrow night.
Teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the foundation of human understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Welcome once again to the program, How to Control Your Emotions, and we've been talking about emotional involvement. And this is the last segment for this week. We hope that you'll join us Monday through Friday and sort of rap with us. You never know what you might discover. And discovery is the secret. Unless you discover it, it isn't yours. If someone teaches it to you and pressures you to learn something, you become emotionally involved with the source of that knowing. So you cannot really know, except you are more deeply into the sources of knowing. Whether it's knowing who you are with a woman, whether it's education, whether it's religion. And the more you know, the less you know. Meaning, the less you realize. You do realize, of course, that the less you realize, realization is never completely lost. It's always felt as a dull anxiety, a feeling of aloneness, a lostness, a despair, an emptiness, a void, a futility, a guilt, an anxiety. It's a language. It's a language of the soul, and you've never learned to speak understanding. See, you speak English, and your English has come from, from the world around you, and the words are not the thing. See? But it's only a name for things. Understanding has a language of its own. We don't live by words and senses and pressures and stresses like animals do. there's a bread of life, there's a knowing within us that has to come to fruition, it has to unfold, it has to evolve from within us, and all emotional involvements do is delay that process of growing up to be the real man and woman. And I must say, as a summary from all the programs this week, the 4 programs this week, and it may sound a little morbid, but unless you see that your emotional involvements, which is the stuff that selfish, earthy, sensual, greedy, egotistical beings are made of, death-centered beings, it's the life of that life that leads to death. It's the life. It's the nectar of the life that leads to death. And the life that leads to death is felt in you as conflict, like you're going somewhere, nowhere. You know, you're going nowhere fast. The more you have, the more unhappy you are. Yeah. Is that right? Is that the way it is with everybody? With its money, with its fame, with its fortune, with its sex, with its excitement, music, no matter what. And you've got to let go of that. You have to realize through experimentation that's not where your destiny lies. It's where death lurks. Death awaits. Yes?
My question or comment has to do with actually the last segment when we were talking about high school and teachers being corrupt, and which they are, and they mislead.
Stupid.
Yeah, that good word.
Products of the stupid teachers before them.
But as these principles start to become a reality in all of our lives, isn't it best to kind of almost stay in the rat race so we can learn by doing and
yes,
by dealing with?
I have never said you should be to withdraw from life, to be go ahead.
What I was just going to say is, so I know that a high school student is very young, but these principles can maybe start to be applied even then. Wouldn't it be a possible good alternative to stay in school and be conscious of what's going on?
If you can, but what about, why put children, why put 7-year-olds, 5-year-old kids into a cesspool and violate them and corrupt them? Why? I mean, you know, if you're a farmer and you're going to grow some corn, you're not going to just throw corn into a field. You're going to prepare the seed bed, and then you're going to water it carefully, and you're going to keep the weeds. You're going to hoe those corn, and you're going to keep the weeds from it. And after a certain while, when the corn gets taller than the weeds, then it has a chance. But if you don't get those weeds before the corn gets tall, then the weeds are going to choke your beautiful children. So I'm saying, if you're a young man and you've been choked and you've been saved from choking, and you think you can go back to school and you can make it, more power to you. But I don't think that would be necessary.
Well, I was speaking of the last situation, 15 years old, high school. It was just a thought. I thought that.
Yeah, it would be better if we didn't send our children to schools such as this. And if you have no choice, like a young lady may not have choice, a mother may not have enough guts to stand up to her father and have a good fight for, she doesn't love her daughter enough to save her from the filth. See, I'm sorry to put it that way, but you got to do it. You have to love your daughter more than your husband. When you have family life, I have to love my children more than my wife, and I expect my wife to love my children more than me, because that's unselfishness. I'm not a little baby. I don't need her love. You give that love to those children, right? So I expect you to love your child more than what your husband thinks of you and the stupid security you can have with such a man. So now he knows who he is. See, and I'm saying that, but if you, as a child, and if there are many children out there, 14, 15, suffering from the pain of being lost in those cesspools of iniquity called schools. There's no guidance, no love, no one to testify to what they already know in their heart, that the whole world around them is like a pack of jackals tearing them down, and they're all alone. They're troublemakers. They see the world for what it is, and the world doesn't like it. They're trying to change them into the animals that they are. And we talk about the kids themselves do it to the kids. You see what I mean? So I'm saying to those kids out there, you know, what choice do you have? You can't run away. It's wise to stay at home, so at least you have food on the table. You don't have to be out with those chicken hawks. It's worse if you run. So go to school, say, yes, Mom, yes, Dad, yes, teacher, secretly. See what I mean? In other words, learn one thing. If you're going to go to school, listen to me. If you're going to have to go to school on those circumstances, if you're going to live in a concentration camp, if you can learn one thing from going to school, one thing, not to be affected by peer pressure, you have learned more in that period of going to school than anybody else has learned. Most people never learn in a lifetime. It is that ability to hold on to your uniqueness and your individuality that will make you a bright star, so that anything you touch will turn to gold.
So doesn't the school experience then become important?
No, I'm saying if you're a parent and you hear my voice and you have enough sense to take your children out, remember your children expect you to love them and to protect them. They do that. And when you fail them, they hate you. And then they hate the school that you send them because they finish off what you began. So they expect you. So, in other words, as a parent listening to me, you have a responsibility to take your kids out of that school. See? And that for your own soul depends on that. Your own soul. Now, if you fail and you submit your child to such gross circumstances, then maybe there are a few surviving children out there that can hear a voice like me, and I say, don't hate your parents. They're dead from the neck up, and pretty soon they'll be dead from the neck down. It won't make much difference to them, right? Don't hate your parents. Maybe they'll wake up one day, maybe they won't. If anybody can wake them up, you can. But you have to remain awake. Don't let the world put you to sleep. So now I say to these kids, survive. Stay home, eat 3 square meals a day if you can. Tolerate the insanity of your parents. Learn not to be intimidated nor to hate their failure, because otherwise you become like what you hate. You become like the father, you become like the mother. Pretty soon you're confused and you're the next generation of insane people doing your own children in. Okay? I'm saying to you kids out there, listen, don't hate your parents. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Don't hate your teachers. Forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. They think they do. Always know in your heart that you know what you know, that the teachers are mad and your parents are mad, and observe it, but don't judge it. Remain detached and don't become emotional about it. Don't hate them, don't love them, just be neutral. And you'll retain your individuality and integrity, and you will grow. And one day you'll shine. 20 years, 15 years from now, nobody, you may not get a degree, and you may not get a diploma. And you may learn a little slower, but you're a creature of understanding. We creatures of understanding learn a little slower. We mature a little later. All those are pretty hep people. They learn all the verses and chapters and all the right words and, you know, the dangling participles, and they know everything. They're glib with their talk. They know nothing. Absolutely nothing, and they'll be nothing. Yes, young man.
Hi, Roy. I recently became a journalism teacher at a high school, and since I didn't want to impose my will on my students, I asked them, would you like to learn about life or journalism? They all raised their hand for life. So what I do in my class
At least they have something to write about.
Yeah. Well, we do a school newspaper also on subjects they wish to write about. But what we do in the class is I pick a topic like suicide, like we did today, and we talked about all the principles of suicide and how your thoughts, you know, it's self-pity.
Right.
Yeah, and I just found that they're discovering and they're flowering instead of me, you know, imposing my will.
They grow in the flowering, and in other words, the purpose of a teacher you're discovering is to help them flower, discover for themselves, so that once you see it's caught on, you can withdraw. You become less. What did Paul say? The more I love you, the less you love me, which means the more I love you, the less you need me. See, we only got one word for love. Greek has many different words for love. So the purpose of a teacher, as you're discovering, is not to slap on like a coat of paint, a veneer, but to help them realize it and give them the pathway of self-realization, which is the leading, the scripture puts it, the leading of the Holy Spirit. Okay? Now go ahead. You got more to say? No. All right. Anybody else? You always got something to say.
I do.
That's sweet. Okay. I would just encourage people who haven't said anything to speak. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I have a little emotional involvement with my brother. My youngest brother is, I believe, is dying from alcoholism. He's been in the hospital.
Yes.
And
who drove him to that? My mother.
My mother and my father. And my father.
Yes.
Because my father rejected him, which
Yeah.
left him to my mother.
Isn't that always the case? Is always the fathers always leaving them to the mothers?
But my father rejected
To the tender
all of us in a
mercies
way.
of the communist compassion. You don't understand what I mean?
Yes, I
Mothers
do.
are communists and
Mhm.
fathers are fascists.
Well, my father.
Fathers are for the strong, the violent. They support one another, and mothers support the weakness, coddle weakness, in order to become a dictator to it. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes, I do.
So you get the love of a mother. It doesn't make much difference. You have the hate of the father, or the love of the mother. It doesn't make much difference. You're dead either way, aren't you?
Yes. My father died from alcoholism as well. But his mother was his father was a preacher, but my
No wonder they died from alcoholism.
yeah, well that's true. My father's mother was the dominant one though. She was.
But tell me something new.
He was her baby, you know, so he could do no wrong.
See that? You hear it, don't you? It's the compassion of the woman. It's almost in competition with the justice of God. See, the
Yes.
devil has no the devil has no justice. In a woman, it's always compassion, feeling, support, a false understanding, a coddling of the weakness and the criminal side of man. You know, quick to forgive the wrong, but also to make the wrong wronger. Follow that? And that's the subtlety of it. When you are loved by someone and forgiven, when someone is very lenient, when the judge is a liberal mother, see?
Yes.
See,
Yes.
they support the dark side. They're very sympathetic and very forgiving, very tolerant, compassionate. They call it, and it's from the devil. There's no justice in it. See, it's the wrong in man that's being forgiven and supported, but it also it gets love to become it grows longer to become wronger. It lives longer to become wronger. See, whenever you support the wrong, if you love a thief, it will be more of a thief. If you love a homosexual, it will be more of a homosexual. Whatever it is, if you love a good for nothing, it'll be even good for nothing. See? The good for nothing. See? The more you love it, the more you have it compassionate. But what you need is justice. And sometimes justice doesn't seem to have compassion. But it is more compassionate because it's not emotional. That's what a father has to be: just, firm, unemotional. He knows what's right, and he knows what's wrong, and he doesn't give way to feeling. See? Am I getting to you? And to you too? See? You're in competition with God when you are loving and compassionate. That's why the liberals are so dangerous in this society. They represent that compassionate, loving, supportive, which is even seems like it's more loving and more just than God. See? And all the people who are seduced by it feel that way. Feel like that's their champion. It's a seductive thing. They don't realize they're losing their freedoms. You see that? Yes.
I have a 4-year-old son. I'm just like that. I'm just the seductive kind of love that I coddle him too much and hug him and kiss him all the time. And I see it and I look at myself.
But you do it too much, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
You do it to get a feeling out of him.
Yes.
You do it to get
And
a power,
and
a
I
feeling of
see it's
security.
wrong.
And you do it to destroy him. You understand that you are doing that not for love, but for selfishness.
Yes.
And you understand the liberals don't do it for love, but for selfishness. So they know that you will fall to that sympathy. And it's sympathy from the devil. And the only thing the devil will give you is domination and dictatorship. Eventually, the liberals will be seen for what they are, socialist dictatorship, where all of us are little kids and never grow up, always needing compassion, always need to be coddled, always to be loved for what we are, but there's no justice. There'll be a society without justice, only compassion for the wrongs. See, so that all the wrong people will have compassion, and all the right people will be in gulags.
Okay, where does
See?
this...
Because you give rights to one person, you take it away from the other.
Okay, where does...
See?
But where does this come out of? I mean, where is it?
It all comes from the Adam and Eve syndrome.
Oh.
It comes from all the troubles in the world, all the horrors that you see around you, comes from the man-woman relationship. Precisely, exactly the same relationship between man and woman as it was umpteen years ago when the first being stood on this earth and man fell away from truth to be his own truth. And see, he became violated by a very seductive moment, the forbidden fruit of glory, to make you wise or God in your own eyes. And the knowledge of good. Knowledge is power, they say. See? And all of this in a man is sustained by more of what was in the garden in a woman. And so it comes in only through the man-woman relationship. A woman becomes more powerful and men become wimps, or they become fascists. They develop the mind of a woman, and they become liberals, or they become in rebellion to the seductiveness that nobody can see, but only he can feel. By his own efforts, he dominates. He rises to conquer what has conquered him, not with grace, which he hasn't got, but with violence of the animal, the beast. Become more of a beast. Then you have a fascist dictatorship. So in every home you've got the fascist on one side, the ruined man, or the liberal man who's a wimp. Yes, dear. Doesn't fight. He gives in and gets love. See? And this is the kids are caught between these two forces. The false and compassionate, seductive love of the woman, totally destructive, which is greater than God. Having turned your children against their father, who's a wimp anyway, he's part of the system anyway, so all the children will become part of the system. But the children will become part of the system even more when they see their father's a fascist.
Yes.
See what I mean?
Yes.
Because, you see your father's no good, I love you. He's got no he tries to impose the justice, but he hasn't got love to impose it with. So, see what I mean? So therefore justice becomes extreme. See? You become a Ku Klux Klan. You know about the principles of America and all the rest of it, and you see all the horror going along with the liberals, but you're so cruel in doing it, everybody runs to mama. Right. So everybody becomes a liberal.
Well,
not everybody, because still we've still got people common sense in this country. Yeah.
But I see what happened to my mother. My mother's mother died when she was 22, and my mother was like 5 years old. So she was given to different relatives, and so she was made to feel like she didn't have a home. And they beat her, and made her clean, made her do all things. And they made her obligated to them. She always felt like she owed them so much because...
Why did you feel that way? From all the things you've learned from me, why do you think your mother felt that way? Was it your mother you're talking about?
Yes.
Why do you think she became this way? Is because as a child she was violated,
yes,
and she was violated by cruelty.
Yes.
You can be violated by cruelty, or you can be violated by love. It doesn't make much difference, you see? So when you're violated by cruelty, and you hate the person that's cruel, what happens to you? You become violated. It means you're not your own person anymore. Who you are has now come from the violence. You're actually addicted to violence in order to exist. In other words, have you ever seen women who stay with men?
My mother.
Even though they're violent to them?
My mother.
It's because the creature that it was reborn through a trauma of violence,
yes,
now it has to have more violence in order to nurture that reborn creature.
Yes.
See? And it can't grow, it can't be anything. So how does it do that? It has to preserve the evil. And how does it do it? It serves the evil, trying to get the evil to love it, but it doesn't. If it loves it, it's in trouble, because it only nurtures what's wrong. And if it's violent to it, because very often people try, you know, your mother would try to get love, and all they got was beatings, right? So that's all, that works too, because then your mother grew up to be bitter. She grew up to be an angry, resentful, hateful person. Now, angry, hateful people sometimes don't look hateful, because they turn around and they make up their mind that they're not going to be that way to their children.
That's exactly what I was going
See?
to say, that she...
You'll forgive me talking too much, but I want to be ahead of you, see?
Okay.
So, in other words, they, in their own mind, they have become the person they hate, and they're so afraid of becoming that, and so afraid of being hated by their children, like they hated everybody else.
And she wanted...
So they do too much for their children.
Yes, she wanted...
And make them alcoholics.
This was her family. These were her children, and this was her family.
And she was going to love them in
the
purest, beautiful,
right.
and give them everything.
Yes, which
spoil them rotten.
Bring this accident between my mother and father, it brings it right down to us children in the family.
Well, now you have this mother that has got all this love that comes out of hate. See?
And my
she thinks it's love.
Rejected my brother.
But she's gone too far with love.
Yes.
You understand that? She's gone too far with love because she never had any. And she has all this hate. This hate has made her go too far with love, being too good to everyone. And this is deadly. It's as deadly as being cruel, because it is a form of cruelty. In other words, the child is stifled and cannot grow. It cannot grow in its own right.
She says that she's done what she all she knew how to do at the time, and I understand that.
Forgive her.
I used to hate her. I used to hate my father.
Can you forgive her now?
Yes, I do. I do.
But
and I wish that I could have been there to protect her when she was a little girl.
That's silly.
I know it is, but
you must always remember your mother, with her spoiling, loving, grasping, destructive. When you see the havoc she's wrought, has not understood the emotional involvement that she was caught up in.
But
she
it's
doesn't
from
know
the
how
lack of a father too.
It's always lack of a father.
Yeah.
Everything in the world is. Every sadness, every suffering, every tragedy is the lack of a father. Whether he's either a bad one, he's a wimp, or he isn't there, but it's a lack of a father. The father balancing father spirit is the Adam and Eve principle. The father spirit and there's the woman spirit. The man must love the hell out of a woman. Your question, real quick.
Yeah, well, I went to visit my parents about 5 years ago, and my dad beat me up in an alcoholic blackout.
Binge, yeah.
And I told my mother that beating was meant for her.
Possibly.
And that all the beatings that I had sustained
was for her.
Were all meant for her.
You know why he took it out on you? Because it was safe.
But then I went and saw him before I left, and I said I was sorry that this had to happen between us. And then he came to visit me, and I wouldn't let him in. I said, "You don't behave yourself around me. I cannot let you in my home." And he was very angry, and I was calm, and he went and told the whole family everything I did.
We got half a minute.
But he got sober.
Yes, you see, because you didn't resent him back. You were able to bring him back to his conscience.
For the first time
he experienced
in my life.
love. But he experienced love, and that's all your father ever needed, was love. And children can love their parents. You see, children can love their parents.
I do love
and wake them up and bring them back to themselves. Because you can be their parent because you have a parent spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Parent spirit is the same to all of us. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Show that and let your light shine, ladies and gentlemen. In order to come back to your parent spirit, you know what I'm talking about. You need to sit quietly and be still and become, detached from the world and find the fullness and meaning of life from within you, and you know it is not anywhere. When you know it is not anywhere, only then are you ready to sit down without freaking out. Okay? Keep the program on the air. Buy the cassettes, the tapes, and all the rest. Listen to my radio program. I think they mention it, the times and the date. Thanks very much, and join us on Monday.